me later if you need any follow-up. Certainly, tell him and he can shoot you my email, no problem at all. But I got my master's about 15 years ago at Gratz, and it's funny. The reason why I joined the doctoral program on January 2nd, 2019. I remember the day because it was pretty, it was the day everything changed in my life. A lot more work. I was actually just getting my transcripts from Gratz, and they sent me an email and they said, do you know, I forget what it was, you're like 42 or 45 credits away from your doctorate. I was going to do another doctoral program in Idaho, and I didn't realize how close I was. So I didn't even know Gratz had a doctoral program. Obviously you do, so you're here. So it's kind of funny how it got started. It was just me requesting my transcripts is how I got back into the loop after getting my master's so long ago from Gratz. And, this is, I think is what it's about, Dr. Loomis, about a 3-year program. Is that, what it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah,
so
about a 3-year program.
This is, it's rough. It's, you all are in it. Working on your dissertation along with your coursework and then your regular lives and jobs, it's rough, but it can definitely be done. The good news is it just goes by almost like a blink of an eye. So that's the really cool part. When it comes to the actual dissertation, you have to start the concept paper, obviously, pretty much as soon as you start the program. And it sounds like that's what some of you are working on. You have to, a friend of mine who works at a local college, he's ex-superintendent, he's faculty, he does a lot of dissertation work. He told me in the beginning, he's like, make it as simple as possible. Do good work, but don't make it any harder on yourself because it's going to be hard already. And I will tell you, I listened to part of that advice and then I kind of strayed a little bit and I tried to make it more complicated. And that's where Dr. Loomis actually reined me in when I was trying to add different things, and we finally weeded it down, but I spent several months trying to make it more complicated than it had to be. So I suppose to answer your first question, Dr. Loomis, I have your list of questions. You asked about who I am and what attracted me to Gratz was because it was relatively quick. Actually, I love the 8-week format, which I thought was brilliant. I think a lot of people are here because of that. Funny thing is, I went to school for free in Idaho, but it was going to take twice as long, and probably more than twice as long. So that's why I joined. Gratz is not a cheap place, as we all know. So, but the education's really been worth it. I'm glad I chose this route. And then let's hope Biden can forgive some student loans and life will be good for most people. I'm not saying it's the right thing or wrong thing. It could really help me. When it came, this question too, when you sent me the questions was, what's my research topic? Just super quick. There's an alternate route program out here in Idaho called Inspire. It's for CTE, or professional technical people, vocational people who are in the trades. It's getting them out of their trades and into the classroom. And then instead of doing a traditional teaching program, it has them get into the classroom day one and then take 2 years of classes in the evenings, weekends, and in the summer to get permanent certification. I actually did an alternate route program in New Jersey a long time ago, which is why I was passionate about the subject, and it attracted me to this program. And I worked with CTE professionals, which stands for career and technical, if you're not familiar. The trades, welding, automotive, could be business, things like that in high schools and community colleges. That's where these people teach. I chose that topic because I had some familiarity with it. I knew some people who were affiliated with my program. So I'll share some of the tips I have. There's not many, and I won't make this very long, but boy, if there's a few things that if I would have thought about or known, it could have saved me a tremendous amount of time, or at least some time looking back on it. This Inspire program was really small, only 67 graduates. So my pool of possible people who could take my surveys and get data from was really, I think it's pretty small. And the stats people, can chime in, but you really have to get a pretty high response rate. I got about a little over half, which thank goodness that happened. If I got less than that, it's already hard enough to make my data work with so little things, especially when I'm doing regressions and trying to, break things down into subsets. But that's one thing, and I'll probably mention this again. You have to make sure you can get enough responses, enough participants. Because if you're only talking 10 or 50, sometimes that's enough, maybe for the qualitative studies, but you have to make sure you're going to get enough. Otherwise, it's just going to be, in my opinion, a nightmare doing your results and conclusions if you don't have enough responses. I'll go into a little bit more, but Dr. Loomis, did you want to chime in? I just talked for about 3 or 4 minutes there. Did you want to ask me something specific, or should I keep going?
No, keep going, Scott. You're doing well. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. So you know what? I kind of wrote this down. I have my list of questions on the side here, but I'll say it right now. In fact, I'll jump around a little bit. I took the 704 class, in my opinion, was really the only one. I shouldn't say the only, but the class that I remember helping me the most for this dissertation process. Other ones certainly brushed upon it, but this one had to do the needs assessment and things like that, had me really evaluate my research questions. But the interesting thing is, I really don't have much of a stats background. So this was really an incredibly tough process for me. And my head was spinning in the 704 class, although the instructor did a great job. It wasn't you, Dr. Loomis, but it was Bazoo, what's his name? Buzang?
Buzang, yes.
Yeah, he did a great job. But I really had no concept in my head, but you did. I know you did, now thinking about the stuff you told me, how my research questions were so important, and how I was going to, and how they had to align, or my survey questions, my results, my data had to align to my survey questions. So then I could really intelligently explain the data in chapter 4. Chapter 3 is methodology, explaining how you're going to do it. Chapter 4 is the result. Hey, I did this and this, and this is what I got, just the facts, ma'am. And then chapter 5 is your conclusions. Because I was so fuzzy, I really didn't understand the process. It was, in fact, it wasn't until the last 3, 4, 5 months that I'm really understanding it, how it's all tying in together now, writing up my results. So I suppose the one thing that I might suggest is really, and ask Dr. Loomis or whoever, or maybe you already understand it, and that's great, how your research questions will match up or line up with your survey questions, and then some of the ways you might present them. You're not going to know everything, and some things might be a surprise. You might be asked to do more. That's all well and good. And I'm speaking from a quantitative viewpoint. I really don't have much of a qualitative mind here. That's not my experience. So that might be a different ball of wax. But I was just so lost in 704. I did it. I went through the motions, and it helped me kind of hone down. But I had already picked I finished my concept paper, and I was already well into writing my dissertation before I took 704. So I just wish I'd have done it earlier in the process. That wasn't anybody's fault, just the way things lined up for my schedule, since I started like halfway. I started January versus, let's say in the fall. It was just, I wish I'd have taken it earlier, because then it really would have helped me more, seeing how I could have set things up better and easier. Because right now I'm paying the price for not making things super clear about a year ago. And Buzang helped out a lot, Dr. Buzang, but I needed it like 3 months before. So that was one of the challenges that I had. And that's just a function of when you can fit in 704. And I know some other classes brushed upon it, but Jen.
I made those same comments to Dr. Loomis a few days ago, that I wish I had taken 704. I wish 704 had been authored way long ago. Yeah.
Day one, right? Yeah. Almost day one. I know they can't do it, but wow. And that's not anyone's fault. It's just a function of time, right, and the way it's set up, right?
I do think when you're thinking about your topic and your research questions, and then when you collect your data may inform your research questions in a different way. So I think as part of this, a lot of people call it an adventure. Research adventure.
I haven't used that word lately.
I thought you came up with some surprising findings on the first cut of the data. And I think Scott, to his credit, he really was interested in teaching preparedness. Like that was the defining question in my mind, Scott. And that was your doing. I didn't suggest that. That was based on your own experience in the literature that you reviewed, that teaching preparedness was going to be the key outcome from this alternative certification program. And it's interesting because people are already teaching, right? So they're kind of
Yes.
learning how to teach while they're teaching, which is unique. And they have to be certified according to the standards. So you also introduce the standards. Were they prepared according to the Idaho standards? And what were the components of the program that helped them to feel prepared to teach? And I think what you're finding, at least as I looked at your data, was it wasn't really the program that prepared them to teach in their mind, although it may have been, and they didn't realize it. I mean, that's the interesting thing. They may not have given the program enough credit because it was, you know, these academic programs, as you all know, tend to be sort of bureaucratic and boring in the way they're delivered. But what they really enjoyed was the peer-to-peer interaction, any kind of mentoring relationships they were able to develop, those kinds of things. But at least it looked to me like, boy, there were things that the program missed that would have been helpful to these participants, and they just missed a boat for whatever reason. Poor design, poor leadership. It could be a variety of things. But I think what you're coming away with is just a lot of great data about what prepares people to teach in their mind. And then the next question is, are they really prepared based on what the learner feels and what the leadership at the school feels? So that's a question for later on. But I think you had a major breakthrough and a major contribution where you could have just said, I'm just going to look at the different pieces of this alternative certification program, look at the different course evaluations that were done, whatever feedback I can gather, do like a meta-analysis, and that probably would have been an acceptable dissertation for grads. And you were determined to go one step better than that, and you're better for it because now you've learned more about that subject area, right? You're an expert in that subject area of teaching preparedness, and now you know how to mount your own survey and analyze the data, and what were the key factors that allowed people to feel prepared, that kind of thing. So a lot of you are in that mode. I want to do more because I want to make a major contribution, and I don't discourage that because I think in some respects that's great if you can do that. But you don't want to spend, another 5 years writing. You want to get through this program, and then you can do other things after you finish the dissertation process, other things that are of interest to you. So I think it's a great contribution. I'm pushing you to think, I'm not an expert. I mean, Scott, it's a little bit like the blind leading the blind, I'm afraid, because
Right.
I have more qualitative experience, but Scott's got two methods people that are research faculty at the University of Idaho who are guiding him through multivariate analysis and multiple regression, and what were all the key factors that allowed people to feel more prepared going through this program to teach. So now he's got great data set that you can analyze. So we just needed to get a little bit more help on that part of it, and that's we don't teach multivariate research methods in our program. Because there are only a few dissertations that end up going that route, and we're able to get special expertise and special help on the method side for students when they get to that point. But you're not going to get that in your coursework, unfortunately. If you were to, if you went to Idaho, you probably would have gotten that, but 5 or 6 methods courses, and that'd be coming out of your ears. But then you'll never use it again as a practitioner. So we're a little bit more practitioner oriented in the dissertation process, and we want you to make a professional contribution to practice more than the body of research. So I didn't mean to interrupt, Scott. Keep going with any other recommendations for students that are in this process now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you actually summed up the whole middle part of it. Now I can kind of go to the end where some tips, in my opinion, that would have really helped me, and maybe I'd have just a little bit more hair than I did when I started the process. And you touched upon a lot of it, but Dr. Moore said this when I was in the summer institute, the first summer institute about 1.5 years ago. They're like, make sure you have a really good team. Make sure you have a good editor, stats person. And I didn't dismiss it because, we all write a ton of papers, right? For, this course and all the other courses. I get A's on everything. I'm not bragging. We all, like a lot of us do. I was a pretty good writer. until I got to the concept paper and then started turning in my first drafts, and I just wasn't used to it. And I wish three or four things I wish, but I wish that I would have talked to a professional stats person in the very beginning to help me really understand how it was all going to fit together for the most part. And I wish I would have hired an editor, and I have both of them now, someone who goes through my writing and is helping me, because there's so many things. Writing a dissertation is just a different animal, way more different, at least for me, than writing any other type of paper I've ever done in any of my other courses. I know there's similarities, but I was just over my head and I didn't know how it all fit in. I tried to be cheap because I'm already spending enough money in this, and I'm spending a little bit of money now on having a stats guy. He Zooms with me, goes over my stuff. He's helping me run some stuff. I write it up. He helps me. And then my editor, I write it and then he goes through and cleans it up and makes recommendations, and we Zoom. I wish I'd have done that earlier, because I would have saved Dr. Loomis a couple different drafts going over it. It would have been cleaner, neater, quicker if I would have done that earlier. I just thought I could get away with getting my wife to read some stuff, who's great too, and some free help at the local tutoring center at the community college. I wish I'd have got some professional help, dedicated people to me, not just some friends who could help me, who have their PhDs. They were great, but I needed that professional help. People I could Zoom with, say, I don't understand regressions. Can you explain that to me as I'm writing this up? Those are two of the big things. I'd have just put $2,000 away and literally paid them any chance I had a question, and it would have saved everyone a lot. I could have got this done 6 months sooner, honestly. I may be on track, and I know you're going to say it's fine, Dr. Loomis, but now knowing what I had, I could have been, we could have done our defense back in September if I had prepared a little bit better. Now, knowing now what I know. And that's one of my big suggestions.
Okay.
The other thing.
Open it up for questions for Scott. Ahuva.
I have my usual question then. Scott, if you could tell me what method you used to save all the things you reviewed. Did you print everything? Did you just save it electronically? How did you save it in a way that when you had to go back and cite it properly, you weren't redoubling your efforts?
I tried several different programs, and I'll be honest, none of them really worked. And I'm trying to think of the program that I used. I'm going to find it here. Send me an email. I know I'll find it right after. But you can upload all your documents in it, and then you can make citations, and then you can search in it. I can't think of the name right now, but it allowed me to help me upload everything so I could find it. And then I could just search in that one program for a keyword. Oh, I know, I'm looking for Loomis and Lent 2014. I typed that in, the paper would come out, and then I could find it in there. The problem was it didn't work for every single document that I found. I actually found it was a little bit more work to do it. I put about 70 references and papers in there, and it worked pretty good, but it wasn't perfect. So I honestly went back to a system of managing files and folders. I had my grads folder, dissertation, and then I just started to print stuff out and, upload my PDFs and put it in there so it could be searchable. So I tried several different things, and I think in the end, I just used my folders on my computer as the best thing, which was a little frustrating because the program was really good. When it worked great because I could properly cite it, and it would come up on the right-hand side, and then I click on it, and the paper would come on the left-hand side. I could see all my citations here. I could literally just copy it. It was supposed to be so you could click right in your document and it could download all the citations, but it never quite worked properly. And they said they're going to fix it. I probably shouldn't even send it out because it never worked perfect for me. So I'm sorry that wasn't much of a help, but I eventually went to just files and folders.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The other thing, and very quickly, and I know, out of respect for time, that I would have done, I would have made sure that my topic was big enough that I could find enough research. My topic was pretty small. And while it's interesting and it's very helpful, I wish I'd have chose something that was a little bit bigger, because I chose preparedness of these teachers to find out their preparedness levels. Problem was, there's hardly there's basically one paper I found. Well, there's other people doing somewhat similar stuff, but one person in Ohio who did research on my exact topic. I wish I could have found 10 or 15 or 20 people who did similar research to use as a model. Not only would it have helped me to find my site, sources and references, but it would also help me find a really good survey that was, if you know what a validated survey is, your survey has to be validated, because you don't want to have to just create it on your own if you don't want to. And it was just really hard to find that because I picked a very narrow topic. It worked out, but it was just a little bit larger. I could have found the citations and the survey a bit easier. I spent a lot of time looking for the survey that we could modify and model. So I wish I had picked something just slightly bigger. And looking back, I could have done that pretty easily. I could have rearranged stuff and used the same topic, but made it just a little bit bigger so I could find more stuff. So that's something I learned on the way, but that's part of the learning experience, right? Yeah, anyway, I guess those were my, the other thing I'll say, when you're doing your survey and you're going to get there, you have to be, Christy Brewer, she graduated with me. You don't know her, but she graduated in 21 months from the grads program, including dissertation. It was amazing. And she said with her survey, she was a pit bull. She bugged the heck out of, she had 143 people, pre-K teachers. And she said she was just merciless, begging them to take her survey to get enough data. And I kind of took that to heart. And I was kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, day 1, day 3, days have it all written out in the methods. But I literally kept sending them messages. Hey, if you didn't take the survey, please do it, and I finally got up to over 50%. So you have to be tenacious. And so you're going to actually, some people are like, dude, you need to leave me alone. I take them off my list. But I was tenacious so I could get to my 50% goal. But I wished my sample size could have been a little bit bigger so I could have just a little bit more data. Now parsing the data, I'm breaking into subsets, and some things really I can't do because I only have 3 or 4 women who are, between 30 and 40 who are teaching this particular thing. So there's some things I can't do because my sample size is a little bit too small. So you always can't help that, but I wish I'd have thought about that, and I would have I'd have picked something that was a little bit bigger. So those are pretty much my suggestions. Yeah, I think those are my suggestions.
Any other questions for Scott? Okay, great. Well, we'll transition then to Adam's completed dissertation, defended within the last few weeks.
Thank you.
So
Nice.
at Westchester University, which is a great school here, not far from Graz, actually, and a great history of teacher education as well. Adam, a little bit about yourself and then your work.
So I have to bye, Scott. Have a good day.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
Take care.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks again.
So I have to give you all kudos. I got to spend a few short years with Dr. Loomis at Penn State during my master's program in higher education administration, and he is absolutely wonderful. So you have a wonderful mentor here, someone that can really help you guide through all of the trials and tribulations that you're going through, which I am a warrior with you, and we all are going to make it, and it's going to be great. But he is fantastic, and I'm so thankful that he asked me to come and speak with you all tonight. So Scott covered a lot of tips and tricks and things to think about. I'm a qual guy, so I am a story person. We're going to talk a little bit about how that all came to be and sort of the maturation that you go through in a dissertation process. So a little bit about my background. I actually started in railway supply engineering many moons ago. When I graduated from Bucknell, I was a biology guy. So I started out very quantitatively minded, started to feel the draw towards the classroom from both my parents, who were higher education people, and then administrators in a K-12 setting. And then found my way to Wilson College, got a teaching certificate, taught secondary biology for a few years in the high school setting, and then decided to seek graduate study. I originally thought I was going to do curriculum instruction and get into the administration and public schools, but I took my first class at Penn State, and the professor it was a curriculum instruction class. She said, you're a higher ed guy. You should probably go across the aisle and check out higher ed. And I haven't looked back since. So I have worked in a multitude of different institutions in residence life, student affairs. I'm currently working at Ursinus College in the academic affairs department. So I work very closely with the sort of bridge between student affairs and academic affairs, and trying to put together the support systems and help students work to their highest level of success. I'll put it that way. But my dissertation topic really was born from a lot of time spent with graduate students who are progressing through their master's program and looking to attain, careers in student affairs, as it were, and really trying to understand the best way that we can think about their education, think about their eventual career aspirations of student affairs and how we can best support them. So my topic was mentorship matters. It was an instrumental case study in a student affairs graduate preparatory program. And I utilized an instrumental case study, which we'll talk about that in a few minutes, and then a phenomenological data collection schedule that really honed in on sort of these life experiences that these students are going through in this graduate program, and how they're really experiencing mentorship and the impacts that they see specifically on their progression through these education experiences and how mentorship has helped them. So where did all that come from? I started the program at Westchester with an idea. Actually, it's kind of funny. I started coming into the program thinking I was going to research college presidents and their use of student affairs and student development theory, and how they're able to sort of govern the institutions that they're working in with a different mindset than maybe what we would originally think about. But as I started to work through the coursework at Westchester, I started to get more of a feel towards, I think, the grassroots level of graduate student education is really important. And sort of one of the tips I guess I would weave into this is, one of the best things you can do for yourself is really dive into the literature and see what exists out there, and what methods or what techniques or what directions other scholars have used, so that you can find your niche and you can start to find and really hone in on that question that you're really curious about, whether it's a practitioner-based question or whether you're thinking about some sort of development of a theoretical foundation or any of the above. I think the literature is a really great place to start. And I'm really happy that I kind of focused in on that, because it helped me to really flesh out, as Scott was saying, research questions and methodological approaches, and really understanding the direction that I wanted to go. So definitely tip number one, dive full-fledged into the literature as much as you can. I really started to develop this question of how are we preparing graduate students in master's programs? And I hearkened back to Penn State, where we focused a lot on administration. We focused a lot on sort of that 30,000-foot view. And there was a student affairs program, but I left the program believing I was going to work in development and philanthropy and a whole different aspect of the college experience than actually student affairs. So when I found myself in that position, I didn't really have any concrete training. I didn't have any concrete conversations. I really didn't understand how to do it. So I started to apply some business models to it. As I thought about it from a research and a theoretical perspective, how would I be able to impart that knowledge on these students that I'm working with in these different graduate assistantships or internships or whatever the case may be? And I started to do some research on mentorship and what does that look like, and how have other scholars really developed their understanding of mentorship in different facets of business or nursing or any other career aspiration, and how would that then apply to student affairs education and understanding more about the ways in which the curriculum are written and all those kind of things. So as I started to understand more about mentorship, and then of course understand more about graduate student affairs, I found this question of, what do these people have in terms of mentorship experiences? It could have been a quantifiable study. It could have been something that we could have passed a survey to these students and asked them to answer Likert scale questions, and we could have done regression and ANOVA analysis and really understand from a statistical standpoint, is there any real significance between mentorship and causal impacts, as it were? But in a graduate student, in the research in student affairs, so much has been done in assessment on quantitative data. So much has been done about the standardization of the curriculum across the different professional organizations, that there really is a gap. There was a missing component to the human experience. We didn't really understand the ways in which students are really experiencing this education from their voice, from their own words. So that started to pique my curiosity towards qualitative inquiry. And then I was fortunate to work with a absolutely excellent scholar, Dr. Matthew Kruger-Ross, who studied phenomenology from a theoretical perspective. And that's really the understanding of a person's lived experience through a particular phenomena. It could be really anything. And as I started to understand more about the theoretical perspective of that, I thought, okay, how could I apply this from a collection or an instrumental perspective? So if I can see that a lived experience and this understanding of this phenomena is really important, can we develop some sort of collection technique or some sort of instrumentation that I can go through a study with graduate students in a program and really try to dive into their lived experiences and understand more about mentorship and what that looks like for graduate students. So again, back to the literature, find a source and find a couple different scholars that have used it and have fleshed out these instrumentation procedures. And I was fortunate to find that. And then I started to conceptualize the doing of this study, right? So if I'm going to do a phenomenological study and I'm really going to understand mentorship as a phenomena by itself, that really would take me to many different institutions. It would take me to many different people. And I'll be honest, COVID really made things have to change. It was not as accessible as it was. So I had to think on the fly. I had to really start to then go back to the literature, go back to the methodological approaches that exist out there, and then think, how can I modify this phenomenological instrumentation and situate it within something that would provide context to this graduate program and mentorship and understand it from, the holistic side of the student affairs program. And that's when I found case study. And so I tell you all of this to really give you that sense of, you don't necessarily have to hold to a particular methodology or a particular data collection instrumentation method to the T. There are ways to modify it once you understand the philosophy of what it is that these instrumentation or methodologies are trying to achieve. And you can try to fit those together as a metaphoric lens, as it were, excuse me, to really understand what is it that I'm trying to achieve with this study, and how is this method and how are these instruments inside of this method really going to help me develop that ability to answer my research questions. So I think that's one of the things I struggle with the most, because I was very, very, I guess, beholden to the idea of doing a phenomenological study, because it was something that I have really developed an expertise in. But because of the restrictions that existed, I had to change. I had to think about it. I had to critically develop a different course, even in the midst of writing this dissertation. And that's a very important, I guess, skill or feeling to make sure that you hold true to your heart as you go through this process. There is no one right answer, so to speak. It's the way in which you're able to justify how you're trying to tell the story and how you're trying to answer the questions. So I guess in terms of big tips and things to take away, that's a good one. I'm looking at your questions here, Fred, and making sure I'm covering things. Okay, I'll give you my little books. I brought some books that I want to show you, and I'm going to share the titles with Fred. And then also, if I can share my screen, yep, I can. I'm going to show you another document that I'm going to give to Fred that I hope he'll pass along to you. And it's a template that you can use for annotating literature as you're reading it, so that it's easy to pull back up. And then I also can answer the question about the database repositories for holding literature and whatnot. And one that I think is helpful, I used it. It was a godsend, believe me, because I could not have done files and paper, but not been okay. Okay, let me start with the books. So It's probably not great to see, but this is Marion
Qualitative
Lickman.
research, yeah.
Yep. So this is qualitative research and education. If you're interested in qualitative research and want to understand more about different methodologies, different ways to apply the central tenets of qualitative research, like memoing as you're going through it, understanding the ways in which you're trying to write the dialogue, this is a great resource. Like I said, I'll pass the details to Fred as soon as we're done here tonight.
Adam, did you have a course in qualitative research methods in your program?
Yes. So
So you
we
had a
had,
separate course, yeah. And we don't have that in grad, so.
so that may be great then for folks that are interested, because it's a great read to really understand sort of a survey level of all the different ways a person can do qualitative research. It really talks a lot about different data collection. So proper ways to do interviews, proper ways to do observations, proper ways to do focus groups. It's all in that book. So that might be great if you're interested in that methodology. Secondly, and lastly, actually, when it's time for the literature review, this was super helpful. So this is the literature review in 6 steps. Again, I'll pass it along to Fred, but it talks a lot about constructing a literature review and really understanding the sort of the process of how you're trying to build and flesh out the direction that you're going. So for my study, I really went through, these are the standards of the curriculum that we have put out from these professional organizations. This is the research on attrition and the reasons why we're losing graduate students, and how education and their perspective from a quantitative view really hasn't touched upon the full scope of why they're leaving. I then transitioned into like graduate student affairs research and the different studies that are out there, which there are not many, but sort of looking at the research that has been done on the population. And then I dove into mentorship and all the different facets that have been done in the different career functions out there, so that we can understand mentorship as the central focus of this study. So the idea of the literature review is to really set the foundation of, this is the problem, this is the population, this is my metric or the thing that I'm most interested in seeing, and here's as much literature as I could find that sort of explains all those things. Okay, let me share my screen real quick. Oh,
Okay, great. Can you do that?
Nope, it says I can't. Okay. It's
Gotcha.
host disabled, but you'll get it from Fred. It's basically a
Doctor, it's an easy fix if you don't mind if I interrupt.
sure, go ahead.
On the bottom bottom of your screen, security. Just click not Adam, Dr. Loomis.
Okay,
Whoever's hosting, just go to the security button on the bottom and enable sharing screen. Adam should be able to share.
Thank you, Beth. I really appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah. I would try to do that in the, when I set up the course, but you
Yeah,
actually have to be in the
override
meeting.
it here so you can let it-
Yeah, you have to be in the meeting. So you should be able to do it now, Adam, can you?
Yep, sure can.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Okay. So
Thanks
just
so
to
much.
show you this brief document, and like I said, I'll send the Word version to Fred so he can pass it along. This was really helpful when I was starting to get into the literature. So this part up here, probably not the most important, nor is the grading, but this will give you sort of the idea of what you're trying to accomplish. So the citation of the article that you were working on, and then a critical summary that you write yourself. And you can make this a running document. You can obviously copy and paste as you go along. But this is a really easy way when you're either starting to work on your concept paper, or maybe you're starting to actually work on your literature review. When you're going back to pull these sources and start to formulate your argument, you have in your own words exactly what that article talked about and exactly what the purpose of that article was, that then could inform your literature review. So I'm hopeful that this can help you at least organize your thoughts and be able to organize the direction that you're trying to go for whatever you're writing in terms of literature. And then lastly, in terms of the article repository, so this is called Zotero. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that before, but this is really what I used throughout my entire doctoral journey. And there's a couple different components that you want to add to this as you go along. But if you go to Zotero.com, you're able to download this particular screen, and then you're able to put file folders for, classes or literature review, as you could see me working through here. And then there's 2 other components that you want to download from the site. So from a general Word document perspective, let me move some things around here. When you download the widget or app or whatever it's called, you're able to download something to Word. So this is called the Zotero application for Word. So once you have the repository where you're putting your documents in, as you're writing your literature review or as you're writing anything that you need to cite, if you go to the document at some point down here, let's say, and you want to add a citation for a particular article, you can click this button that says add or edit citations. You can choose the particular citation format that is part of your program. So for us, it was APA. And then at this point, it'll bring up a box where you're able to type in the specific article that you're interested in citing. So for instance, we could do a, let's see. So if I type in that, here are all the articles that come up when I type in Van. If I wanted to do phenomenological interviewing, it'll bring it up. And then at that point, when I hit enter, it makes a citation. Okay.
Very cool.
So then when you're all finished, when it's time to insert the bibliography, you can click here and it says add or edit bibliography, and it'll do that for you. And the most important thing is before you get to this point in your main hub, as it were, anytime you put an article in here, you're able to look and see, okay, what was the abstract? What is the titles? What is all the dates and the IBSN numbers and the volumes and all those things? You want to make sure those are correct because that's where it's pulling the information from when it's creating the citation and your wording, and then also your bibliography. And then the third piece that you want to make sure you have, if you pull anything from internet sites, there's a way to add a widget or an application to the internet as well. And you'll see it here, saved as Zotero. So if you happen to go to Google Scholar and you're pulling up an article that would be, let's see. Bear with me here for a moment. So let's say you wanted to pull this particular article up in this right-hand corner, you can see where it says saved as Zotero. When you click that, it'll drop down the menu and you're able to pick the folder that you want to put it in, and it will send it back into this particular app or repository, as it were. And then you've effectively saved the document. So then if you wanted to access it after you closed out your browser, you'll see the PDFs are here. You can click on that and it'll bring up the PDF so you're able to read it. Okay.
So you would prefer Adam Zotero over Mendeley or the other?
I think they're
Similar
both
program?
great. I just
Yeah.
happened to find Zotero, and that one spoke to me when it
Yeah.
was presented to us. I have other colleagues in my program that used Mendeley and loved it. I think they're both very similar in terms of how they operate, but
Good.
that was just a credit.
Yeah, those are two. Ahuva, I think that was your question when before. Those are the two that were recommended by our
Right.
research librarian at Gratz. So I think whatever feels most comfortable to you.
Right.
Yeah.
I just looked up Zotero and it has a Chrome extension, which for people like me who can't be stuck to one computer, that might be super helpful to be on the
Great.
cloud.
And that's
But like anything else, as much as you put into it is what you'll get out of it.
Yeah.
and that's what I was showing you on the website, that Chrome
Or
extension.
on your phone.
And you are so right, Ahuva. You can take it at any device. I have it on every computer that I'm working with. And once you have a single log on, you can actually pull up you got it. You can pull up your stuff everywhere.
And the application on the phone has good reviews. I haven't used it yet, but it seems like
Wow.
Very good.
It was fantastic.
No, yeah, I think that's what I found too.
Yeah. I really appreciate that because your brain, this is what I'm finding with the dissertation. Like, I just have so many places I want to go with it. And then what happens is you look up one article, which is what just happened to me, and I got it on a complete tangent because it was such an interesting article, but it's not helping me. But then I had to read it because I like to read. So afterwards, I'm like, and what? I didn't even get the answer to my question.
Yeah.
And 30 minutes later,
And that's where the annotated Word doc can really come in
super
handy.
helpful, right?
Yep. Because even if you, and you are so right, you go on these little tangents and you're down the rabbit hole on whatever it could be.
Then you think of changing your topic because it sounds so interesting.
But at least you have it. And then you've also done a summary in your own words. So when you come back to it, if you go on one of those tangents, you can go, oh, I remember what that was about.
Right.
And you have it. You may never use it. There's a ton of
Right.
stuff in my Zotero that I've never touched, but it was there. I have the annotations. If it would have spoken to me as I was writing, I knew it was there. So it's almost like a good safety blanket, if nothing else, you know what I mean? So we've been talked at a lot to all of you. I want to answer your questions. I want to give you a chance to talk about anything qualitative. I also have a pretty good background in quantitative, so I can help you as much as possible there. You know, wanderings about the craziness that is dissertation life, anything. I want to give you all a chance to have some time to ask questions.
Yeah, or to share where you're at and ask for
Also,
advice.
yep.
That's fine too.
How long would you say it took you to derive your final topic from your original concept?
So Westchester's programs may be a little bit different than what you all are doing. We go through a very rigorous like class schedule, and then we dive into the actual writing of the dissertation. All of the classes leading up to the dissertation writing are meant to help you formulate the questions and formulate your direction. But I will tell you, I started my comprehensive exam on July 12th. I probably changed my research questions and my topic very minutely, but still playing with it up until a week before I defended it. So it's a constant evolution of, I know my direction. I know what I'm trying to answer. I know the reason why this is important. I've articulated my positionality. I've done all the methodological pieces that I need to, but as I'm reflecting on the data, as I'm analyzing the data, as I'm using it to try to tell the story of the people that I'm working with, these questions may change slightly and they may be dressed up a little bit differently, or they may need to be worded in such a way that actually better approximates the story that I'm trying to tell. So one of the things that I've tried to tell other folks that are coming up behind us, don't be married to something to the point where you can't see the greater picture. You want to understand the direction that you're going, but don't believe that this question is really what's defining your work. The definition of it is the way in which you're able to help people read this thing and really understand what it is that you've done and the importance of it. Does that help?
Yeah, I'm struggling with something that I think Scott had said, where my population that I'm working with is probably so small that there's not even any point in considering a quantitative look.
Yep.
So do I then try to include a larger population, which shifts my question in one direction, or do I go with qualitative and case studies, which shifts what I'm hoping to learn about in a different, kind of in the opposite direction?
I had 3 people I worked with in my dissertation, and I interviewed them for roughly 200 minutes. And they also did 2 reflective journal exercises. And I had roughly about 300 pages of qualitative data that I then analyzed through deduce and all. But mine was truly qualitative. There are options to think about, Amanda, about maybe there's a mixed methods component. So maybe I don't have necessarily this giant population that I can find something that's statistically significant, but maybe I can do some demographic data and I can do some simple regression models to show, let's say maybe an exploratory study where you do a qualitative inquiry in the beginning. So you do some of those interviews and maybe you do a reflective journal exercise or something. And then once you understand what those themes are or what the person's words have told you, then you might be able to direct a survey to them to then understand a little bit deeper from a statistical perspective. What is this thing? What is this phenomena? Or what is this? What is the wanderings of these people? And then how do we relate it back to your questions or your topic or whatever? So you can piece both of those together. Population is important for statistical significance, but it doesn't have to limit you in the ways in which you're trying to develop the answer to these questions. So I might challenge you to think about it from maybe I can do both. Maybe I don't necessarily have to focus on one or the other. Maybe the way in which I answer this question is maybe more qualitative than quantitative, but I do a little bit of both.
I worry about the sort of hyper locality of having a very small population. And is then the message of the overall work not going to be generalizable in a useful way?
So you go on that journey, right? So when I did my validity and generalizability conversation, qualitative data is not generalizable. it's meant to be read as a informative prose, as it were, so that either practitioners or theorists can read this thing and then understand, I want to investigate my own population or my own situation, or we should do further research to maybe expound upon this thing.
Okay.
So you can go down the road of saying, I am interested in understanding more about this topic because maybe there isn't a big niche in the literature and there's really no full grasp of any component of this thing that you're interested in. So this mixed method study heightens our awareness to it. It is not necessarily generalizable to the entire population, and it doesn't necessarily develop a theory, but it points to this being something we should look at more.
Okay. Thank
That
you. That's really
helpful?
helpful. That's very helpful. Very
Okay.
helpful. Because what I want to look at, I can't find anything on this particular overlap of topics, and yet I feel like it's urgently needed in my particular practice. So
And
it's
that's
helpful to
beautiful.
know that that's a valid
That's
pursuit.
beautiful. If you have nothing, then you can be the one. You can be the one that says, hey, this is a thing. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
you can do purely qualitative. You could say, I'm going to talk to maybe 2 people and I'm going to go on a journey for 6 or 8 months and do a real deep dive into these people's experiences. And as a result of that, the reflections that I put out there says that we need more. I'm not trying to say that this is applicable to every situation that's out there. I'm just saying it's important.
Okay.
Or you
Cool.
could use mixed methods and really say, here's a holistic view of this thing from a statistical perspective and also a qualitative. So again, we should investigate more of it. But that's awesome. I think you're really set up to make a big pitch there. That's great.
Thanks.
And a lot of times a qualitative study can be used as an advocacy piece.
Okay.
So there's a whole school of thought about advocacy research. And you've got, with a qualitative study, you have evidence-based best practices, right? So you've gone through the rigor of demonstrating why this particular program has been so successful, or this approach. From a scholarly perspective, you can't generalize that, but you can say, hey, look at this. You might want to try these things which worked in this situation, especially if you have a population that's very similar in terms of their needs.
Okay.
And then that gets replicated. And then they might use the same method that you used. So if you get enough qualitative studies and you aggregate those, then you can generalize, right?
Great.
Around that particular area. So, so you're advocating for that type of approach. And I think in your field, that's definitely needed. We need more advocacy research from my biased perspective on the topic.
Well, now I can't wait to read it when it's over with. That's going to be great.
Yeah, you can tell I'm just so proud of Adam because he took the little crumbs that I gave him in this master's program and just little seeds, and now he's got big trees growing and really is an expert. We did not teach qualitative methods in our master's program. You know, it was very practitioner oriented. It was a generalist degree. So we weren't preparing people to be student affairs experts. We hoped that they would go on an internship and maybe learn something. And I think that's where Adam's research is so valuable. When these students did go on internships, they learned a great deal if they had the right set of circumstances, the right mentoring relationships, the right level of self-awareness and critical self-reflection as they were going through the program. All those factors made a difference, it seems to me, from the participants' perspective. So yeah, it was a great contribution about mentoring. I was thinking, Doug, the Jewish Scholars Program, it's the same kind of mentoring thing that I like so much. That can be happening in a graduate program too, if it's structured right with the right kinds of incentives and people that really want to mentor and they get intrinsic rewards for that, or maybe some extrinsic rewards for doing it, those kinds of things. But mentoring is just a great
Doug, are you
part of
interested
education.
in mentoring?
So
Yeah,
through,
talk a little bit about the Jewish Scholars Program.
Yeah, please.
yeah, through work. I'm not sure if this is going to be my dissertation route, but I work for a Jewish nonprofit, and we are working with another Jewish nonprofit right now on matching people up. Mentoring is actually something that's come up as like an added bonus as part of it. The original concept is one-on-one learning. So matching a Jewish educator with one of our staff members for like based on like topics that they're interested in, and then doing like Jewish learning through that. So then, yeah, Dr. Loomis brought up the mentoring piece of it, which is something that I think we're going to really look at and see if those relationships form almost like naturally from what we're setting up for them.
So in terms of literature, Kathy Cram, Kram, is like the guru of mentorship that exists. And she also works with another woman by the name of Ragins, Ragins. Some of it, the seminal works are from the 80s, so it's a little bit back there, but she will talk a lot about what's called the mentor role theory. And she'll talk a lot about two different legs of that. So career functions and then psychosocial functions. The career functions really talk about trying to help a person, regardless of their industry, understand more about the particular job that they are trying to enter in, but it's the ways in which the mentor teaches them those things. And then the psychosocial functions are the ways in which a mentor acts as like a role model or a coach. That may be something that really bolsters a literature review for you. And you can go down, there's quite a few other authors that will sort of get in that tornado, but those are the seminal folks, and it will speak to you a lot, I think, with what you're working on there. And I'd be happy to connect with you. Fred has all my stuff, so please, by all means, let me know. I'm happy to chat with you and give you more resources if you need it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, I'll follow up and share Adam's contact information.
Awesome.
And Fred, I'm happy to stay longer. I know we didn't have a ton of questions, but anybody that wants to stay and chat, I'm all for it. So please, yep.
Very nice.
I
Yeah,
do have a question, so
Go ahead.
I'll wait. It might not apply to everybody. I'm curious as to, I'm just kind of getting into my methodology.
Mhm.
I'm curious as to why you felt that COVID has, I don't want to say ended the option of phenomenology. I was hoping to do all my in-depth, I realized not being face-to-face changes things, but I was planning to do all of my in-depth interviewing via Zoom.
You can, and it will work. A true phenomenological study will take you longer than maybe what you want to do in a dissertation. So it's an initial interview. It's you going back and massaging the data and reflecting and understanding the ways in which you are a part of this and your lens is a part of it, and the way that you're learning from this person's lived experience. And then you go back to them and you have another interview, and you have another situation where there's questions that have developed as a result of the first interview and the way in which you've analyzed the data. So you go through the second interview, and then the same process continues. It could be 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And I felt that given the restrictions in the program that I was looking at, so students didn't necessarily have as much assistantship face time with their mentors that they would have otherwise. I didn't have an opportunity to really embed myself in some observation situations where I could see and really understand the sort of natural interactions between mentors and mentees, or mentors and proteges. I felt like it was necessary to use, so it's the researcher's name is Bevan, and it's from 2014. That's a very structured phenomenological interview pattern. I wasn't able to do that. I just didn't have the opportunity to really to embed myself with these students and go through the hermeneutic cycle and the reflection that I can do with these folks. So as a result of that, because there are these 3 steps, I was able to give them a reflective journal exercise in lieu of a second or third interview, so that they could effectively be able to articulate to me when they did have an experience with mentorship. What was that like? What situations did you go through? How can you understand the impact of this on your personal and professional practice? So I could analyze that reflective data and not miss out on an opportunity that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So it goes back to that idea of sort of thinking on the fly and modifying things, staying true to the collection instrument and some of this constant comparative analysis, but not necessarily holding true to the theoretical understanding of what phenomenology is. And I think it actually gives us some more conversations about sort of that juxtaposition between the theoretical perspective of phenomenology versus the data collection perspective or the use of it. and how can we sort of live in that gray area depending on the situation that we find ourselves in. And really diving even deeper, my study wasn't so much concerned about the phenomena of mentorship across the board in education. It was more about situating it within a particular graduate program. So situating that within a case study and defining what that looks like, and then using this data collection instrument was more important to me than really holding true to phenomenology. Does that help?
It helps tremendously, and I may modify and adjust and combine some things. Will you make your dissertation available?
Yeah, it's in the process of getting reviewed, and then it will be on the digital commons through Westchester, but you should be able to find it through Google Scholar whenever the blessing comes. So
Thank you.
thank
How
you.
long did it take you, Adam, I know the structure is a little different, but how long did it take you from when you sat down?
So our program was 3 years. I started writing in the middle of July and I finished on March 12th.
Of the third year?
Yes. Yep.
It
So
took you the full 3 years?
no, the dissertation I went through 2 years,
So that's 9 months.
9 to 10 months. Yep.
I hope it takes 9 months to do anything, as you so well know.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Ours was very structured in the sense that we had to walk through all the coursework. And then once we passed our comprehensive exams, then we were allowed to start writing. So the comprehensive exams happened in July of 2020. And then I just finished in March.
Wow.
Good for you.
Thank you. You all will do it too. You're all very strong folks. I mean, great
Oh.
questions,
I have no doubt about it.
great guide, obviously. I'm happy to help you too along the way, but you'll do it. The best advice I got a long time ago was the best dissertation is a done dissertation. So keep on marching. You will do
No,
it.
I believe that too. And I think the Gratz chairs would subscribe to that too.
Yeah.
But I think I wanted you to leave this course with an appreciation that, we're surveying different tools that are available, research tools in different areas. They're very prescribed for practice. And now we're asking you to, also think about your dissertation, which is going to be different than these tools, maybe not, but probably. And then once you decide on your topic and your method and approach, become expert on that method. And that's going to take some additional learning that you'll do somewhat on your own. Adam's done some of that. Scott has done some of that, or he's gotten some support to do some of this multivariate statistical analysis that he wasn't schooled in and wasn't familiar with, but is now tackling and will become an expert on how to analyze that data, right? So you're going to have to deep dive into that particular method that you choose and become expert in that. Adam's given us a couple tools. Writing your literature review is no trivial matter. Even though you've written papers before, this is something different.
Mine was 60 pages long. So it's,
and you'll go back. You're writing your chapter 5, you'll go back and add some additional references in those later chapters and maybe rewrite part of your chapter 3 because you've learned so much from your data collection, right? And now you want to go back and see if there's anything that you've learned that has also been validated by previous studies.
one thing jumped to mind, Fred, just
Yeah.
to put it out there too. One thing I struggle with a lot, and you may or may not, but I want to offer it as just a thought. You'll hear the phrase, you're an expert now. You'll hear the phrase, you are just this person that understands your methodology, understands your direction. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. You're going to feel like, how in the world am I going to make any sense of all of this? And how in the world is anybody going to believe that I use this tool or this method or this thing correctly? And another really good piece of advice I got was justify your choices. If you can articulate the reasons why you chose to modify this thing or use this in a particular way, if you're able to articulate a reason, when you get to the defense, that's the coronation, right? That's the point where everyone gets to say, okay, you have shown us in your writing why it is that you did this thing. Now we want to hear you say it. If you can justify it, it's correct. And you are the expert and you have produced a viable study. So above all else, when you're in the darkest of hours, remember that you're trying to tell a story and it's your story. So if you can tell it and you can show why it's important, you've done your job.
And I think have confidence in yourself and your findings, because if your committee feels you're a little shaky, they're not going to have confidence in what you've done,
Yep.
and you'll have trouble. Yeah, Chad?
Good, yeah.
Less of a question, more of kind of a statement. I know some people in here are just kind of starting their journey. I'm at the point where I'm almost on my concept paper, so I'm at a little different point.
Yep.
It seems really overwhelming right now. I promise as time goes on, it will make more sense and seem less daunting. And then you'll find a new mountain to climb, and then it becomes more daunting. But when you're just starting out, trying to just get your bearings is hard enough. So I know a lot of information being thrown at you all at once is kind of like, what did I get myself into? You get more comfortable in it.
For sure. Absolutely. That's a great
Great
point.
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
think-
do?
Go ahead. Go
What
ahead,
do you
Mandy.
do if you find a topic that you're like, oh wait, no, this should be my dissertation? Like, how do you divide up this first dissertation and any work you'd want to do as a postdoc? Like, does it make sense to think of it that way? Like, okay, I want to do these 3 things because they're clearly connected in my mind, and I want to show the connections between these 3 things, but I'm already getting all this guidance to scale back, scale back, scale back. Is it helpful to think of it in terms of, okay, this is going to be my dissertation topic, and then I can do another dissertation, and I can do another dissertation?
From my perspective, Amanda, I experienced that a lot in terms of, I want to change the world with this thing. It's going to be my coronation into everything. The dissertation is your ability to show that you are a qualified, viable, ready to go researcher. So the thing that you can do that shows that you understand all of the things that Gratz is teaching you, and that you are ready to enter into the world of research and understanding a problem and trying to work towards a solution with that. The rest of the projects will follow. You're building yourself a career. You're building yourself a direction. I'm having conversations right now about writing book chapters and doing all these things, and my head's spinning because it's like, whoa, I just got done, right? But it's the beginning of your niche. It's the beginning of your career. So I think the guidance that you're getting is excellent. Pick something that helps you, show that you are a viable researcher and that you can make a contribution to the grander body of literature, and then take that and run with it for the rest of your career.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm making the transition from thinking of this dissertation as the culmination of my college and graduate education to, it's really the starting point of whatever's next. And I'm kind of struggling with that mental transition.
And you will. It is a journey. It's a maturation process. Your brain will change. Your thinking will totally, do a couple 360s as you go along. You'll see the world differently, but that's kind of the point of this thing. It's really about, teaching you how to be an inquisitive person, and then give you the tools to solve those inquisitions that you have, and then keep seeing them and keep solving them and keep working forward. I don't know, Fred, if that helps, or direction of the school.
Yeah, no. I think Mandy, and you're just starting out, so I think you're over time you'll develop an appreciation that the thing that you're working on really is a culminating experience for you, and the contribution you're making is meaningful and impactful, but it's just the beginning of other contributions that you can make. So I think Adam's advice is good. I mean, we want you to be, as you graduate from this program, what I called in the beginning of the course, the practitioner scholar, with an emphasis on the scholar. And this dissertation will give you that ability to demonstrate that and feel good about it. And then you go on and continue and advocate to others and encourage others to do scholarship in that area and how to do it. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we're at the end of more than the end of the hour. So I hope this has been helpful.
That's what happens when you do qualitative research. You're long-winded and you just talk forever.
Well, Adam's excited about his research, as all of you will be. I know Chad's ready to take off now with his work. And some of you are just thinking about it or in the middle of it. So I think they're very useful tools. And Janet, I don't know, Adam, you mentioned when you do a Zoom interview, you get the transcript too.
Yes.
Then there are programs that you can use to analyze the qualitative data that I did not use, but I know they're out there. So there are tools that will help that process, right, Adam?
Janet, the Zoom transcripts are great. You do have to fix them. They don't catch everything. And a lot of times they catch words that don't exist. So it's a lot of cleanup work, but then you want to look for deduce, DEDOOSE. That's a qualitative data cruncher. You're able to code through that. You're able to start developing what I'll call coding trees and really understand the ways that large chunks of data then become down to the themes that you're able to identify. And I'm happy to walk you through that sometime, just as a little crash course of how it looks. And we can look at my data set. That's totally okay. Just to see what it looks like and how you can use it. But it's great. It basically writes your chapter 4 for you, because the whole flow of how the data went from these people's words into these individual themes and the snippets that you would use is right in front of you. You can just pull it as you're writing.
Excellent, thank you. And I will take you up on that offer. Thanks.
You bet.
Yeah, the dark ages, we would,
Yeah.
use tape recorders, and then we'd have to pay somebody to transcribe the interview, and then we'd have to get out our yellow markers. And so that was a time-consuming process. This can go quicker using the tools, and you get so much out of the interviews, I think. I mean, it's very powerful, the data that you get in qualitative research. That's my bias, though, so.
Me too.
State the obvious there. But thank you so much for sharing the evening, Adam, and all of you for joining us. So share the recording and Adam and Scott's contact information, and we can continue to have these conversations over the next few weeks. And then when you present your final assignment, we'll have another conversation like this. And as many of you that can join the presentations, I hope that you will, any topic that's of interest to you, but certainly the peer review, you'll have at least an audience of one besides me. You'll have two and hopefully more, and we can continue to have this dialogue about the whole research process. So again, thank you for hanging out tonight, and enjoy all of you the rest of your evening. And thanks again, Adam, for joining us.
My pleasure. And to all of you, best of luck. You will do it. You will be great. And I'm here to help you as much as I can.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Very good.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
So long, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.